I'd now like to introduce Michael and Cressida McNamarra from Pecora Dairy, Australian fine sheep milk cheese. Welcome.
Good morning. My name's Cressida, and my husband Michael and I run Pecora Dairy, a small dairy milking East Frisian sheep, producing cheese and yoghurt on our farm. Our dairy is in New South Wales in Australia. There are obviously many ways to run a sheep dairy enterprise, but this is our story and we're really passionate about it and the style of business which works for us. We have a simple strategy to product and to our marketing, with a focus on restaurants and provenance and connectedness. And what does this mean? Well, you can see here in this closed loop, we've got our farm and our story. And that really is our product. And that then becomes the story for our chefs. And it becomes their story as they're getting their message out into the marketplace of local and seasonal food. Our farm is 230 acres, 2 hours south of Sydney. We have really rich red basalt soils and over 2 metres of rain annually. So this produces amazing lush green pastures, and therefore our East Frisian sheep can produce gorgeous creamy milk for us to make cheese from. We are milking just over 100 ewes, but are working to our carrying capacity of about 200. We live and breathe local, seasonal, and handcrafted cheeses. Sustainability is critical to our story. Our philosophy is to manage our land and animals ethically and sustainably. From our milking, our cheese making, through to our packaging, selling, we want to do this as authentically and as honestly as possible. I'll hand you over to Michael now, who's going to talk a little bit more about our cheeses and where we sell them.
Thanks, Chris. Next slide, this one. As Cressida said, our story is critical to our branding and our positioning in the market. So we live and breathe being seasonal and local. We nurture those connections with our local chefs and with our markets. And so there is that closed loop, as Cress said, that feeds back on itself. So for instance, for us, being farmers that milk our own animals and then put that milk into product on site, it's absolutely crucial that unique message of paddock to plate. It's crucial that we can use that message to then hook in our customers who quite often are customers for life. We celebrate the seasonal changes that happen on our farm. We're not trying to shy away from that. So for instance, at the moment, what's happening is, as many of you know, the volumes are starting to rise in the milk. So when making a blue cheese, for instance, we're making a sheep milk blue cheese, because of the higher proportional fat content in the milk, it means that it's really hard to drive out the whey. So we try and adjust our cheese making a little bit, but we make sure that we've got that relationship with our chefs, so that the chefs that buy our products, so that they know that in a few months' time, when they're getting a softer, creamier blue cheese with more earthy notes and more spiciness coming through, they know exactly why that's occurring, and they know that they shouldn't expect a cookie cutter consistent product throughout the year, but rather to celebrate the fact that they've got products that are both local and seasonal. So we're not hung up on having to drive absolute consistency throughout the year. Even though we do adjust our cheese making process so that obviously it's the same cheese, it's just slightly different. So for instance, at the moment we might cut the milk with some more water, or we'll cut the curds more finer to try and get more of that whey naturally coming out of the curd. By explaining that and by bringing our chefs and our customers along with that journey, it means that our story is something that can hook into their story. So I'm going to give you some examples of how local chefs celebrate that they're using local produce, that they're using local and seasonal produce, and how it becomes part of their story. And those connections with our chefs then in turn become part of our story again, if that makes sense. So this is one of the reasons why site visits for us are a big deal. We try and get our chefs and we try and get the people that use our product to the farm as often as we can. And whilst they're standing on that beautiful lush grass, we're saying to them, tomorrow that grass that you're standing on is going to be on a plate somewhere in your restaurant. And it's an extraordinarily powerful message. This is a picture of a local celebrity chef in Bowral who's got a restaurant called Biota. He's won Regional Restaurant of the Year many times, and he's been on MasterChef and a few different things like that. But our cheeses have never gone off the menu at that restaurant. So for 5 years, our cheeses have been a constant in his menu. He's always coming to the farm. He engages with us. He sees how we milk the sheep, how we engage with the animals, how we manage our land. That he even forages, for clovers and sorrel that's in the paddocks. So our stories are interlinked. And to the right of the screen there, you can see an Instagram message that he's put up, where this is one of the many dishes that he's used over the years. But Instagram is a really important vehicle for us because we can tell that story. All of our Instagram messages have either got the message of sustainability or deliciousness or connectedness with our chefs. So we're not putting on Instagram, cute pictures of our children. We're not putting on, we're not straying from that message of farm, delicious cheese, and collaborations. Just recently, James helped us, which was massive for us. We had a 5th year anniversary party in our paddock, and we invited 100 chefs from Sydney, the who's who. And to our surprise, almost 100 turned up, and we put on a big show in our paddock, had our own lamb on open fire pits, and we used whey and cheese and showcased all of our cheeses. And James helped us right along the way. And in the following months, our cheeses were in the who's who of Sydney restaurants. So it's really important to get chefs to properties and to really engage them with what's happening. For some reason, quite a few times we've had chefs come to the property, and they sort of stand there in the paddock and they say, okay, so the sheep are there and the dairy's there, and you're making and you can sort of see it like connect all the dots, and you sort of think, well, what did you think we did here? Of course it all happens in this tight little patch where the sheep are milked and it's all made into product. But it continues to surprise them, and it surprises us that it surprises them. Very quickly, here's some other examples. One on the left, Chef Peter Gilmore. He's been the best chef in Australia for quite some time. Key Best Restaurant. Over to the right-hand side, O-Bar in Woolloomooloo. This is just a handful, just to show you that regramming these dishes, these composed cheese dishes that chefs do, really then gives them a reward for posting in the first place, because you're regramming and you're sending it to all your followers, and then suddenly it gives someone else an incentive to also put up an Instagram picture. So it sort of, it tends to snowball and feed on itself. The one on the left is Bennelong. Bennelong is the restaurant in the Sydney Opera House, so probably Australia's most prestigious restaurant. You're sitting in the Opera House. You're looking at the Harbour Bridge and all the magnificent boats on the harbour, and of course what they're going to do. What Peter Gilmore also runs Bennelong. And they've got the philosophy, well, why would we have French cheeses in Australia's most iconic restaurant? And indeed, why would you? So they're focusing on local and seasonal and Australian, as they should at one of Australia's most premier restaurants. And the one on the right is a 5-star hotel that's also using our cheeses. And again, it's not just Biota who's local. There's a couple of other really good local chefs. And especially when you're a regional restaurant, local produce is absolutely critical to your story. So it's such an easy market because they need you just as much as you need them. So it's really important to us that people can go to local restaurants and have our beautiful local seasonal cheeses. Just some brushes with fame. We had Jamie Oliver come to our dairy, and we got his hands on a few teats. That was quite fun. And the one on the right is a fellow called René Redzepi, who runs a restaurant in Copenhagen called Noma. I think it's won best restaurant in the world 3 or 4 times over the last 5 years. So when you really stake your market and you live and breathe it, it creates its own momentum. And so I think you've got a feel for how we run our business and how we market our products. So we're probably running a little bit over time, so I'm happy to talk about questions later on. But if you need to... You please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, but we don't really have a website. Our website is just a brochure. We don't really encourage people to go to our website because our story is best told on Instagram, because you can see the changes in the season, you can see what's happening. You know, people will see that there will be cute lambs at lambing time. They'll see beautiful cheeses. They'll see the lush pastures of spring, and it's integral to our story, and that's where most of our marketing is, because that is how people understand what our product is. Our product is our farm, and our farm is our product. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for everyone that puts this conference together. This is our second year that we've come here, and it's such an important thing. We'll come back, no doubt, again next year. Thank you all for listening.